Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Ciel DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Jenny Lilly. She is an interior artisan and designer specializing in window treatments and other soft home furnishings. Jenny operates a full-service fabrication studio in Hickory, North Carolina, known as Grace by Design. She creates one-of-a-kind window treatments, bedding ensembles, table coverings, and pillows, while also offering blinds, shades, and shutters. Her clients are drawn to the inspiration, couture details, and functionality her creations bring to their homes. When Jenny is not creating with her hands, she enjoys a worthy cup of coffee, outdoor activities, and traveling alongside her husband, daughter, and their beloved vizsla, baby Ray. I hope you enjoy hearing from Jenny today. Jenny, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Looking forward to it.
Good. I'm glad. Well, I'd love to have us start out by having you introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about where you are in the world, who's important in your life, and I'd say what you do for a living, but I think most of us already know the answer to that. It's a little different, but right. Tell us a little bit about your business.
That's right. Okay. Well, I'm Jenny Lilly, and I operate a custom workroom in Hickory, North Carolina, and I do custom soft home furnishings, everything from window treatments to bedding to tablecloths, that kind of thing, light upholstery, cushions, that kind of thing. I've been doing it since 1999, so quite a while. And I've been married to my husband for 32 years, and we have one daughter, and she's 16. So if you do the math, we say we have used up our retirement on the front end. And anyways, we love it. We have a lot of fun. So
that's awesome. And can I just say, when you said how long you'd been in business and how long you were married, I was like, that can't be possible. You don't look old enough.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Oh, you were kind, but our 16-year-old daughter makes us feel that way. Makes us feel old some days, and then some days she makes us feel young. So.
I said there's a reason we don't have babies in our 50s and 60s. It gets harder.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started in this business. Did you start with a sewing background? What made you start sewing soft furnishings and window treatments?
Well, I've been surrounded by artisans my whole life. My mom and grandmother sewed. That's probably where I learned to sew. Mm-hmm. My dad is a custom furniture maker. He does it as a hobby. He doesn't do it for a job or anything, but so he makes just beautiful furniture. He has a lot of sayings, and one of his sayings is make the inside look like the outside, and that has translated so much with soft home furnishings for sure. Right. But and then just aunts and uncles, all of us are like makers. We make things with our hands. So I think it was kind of natural. I probably drove my mother crazy trying to combine patterns and so forth, when I was in school and all that. So I actually went to college for fashion design. That's what my degree is in. And so I graduated college, started working for several companies, ready-wear, sportswear, those kind of things, pattern maker, designer, operating the sample room, those kind of things. But I wanted to be closer to the client. I wanted to see the difference my creations and my designs made on a one-on-one basis, not just putting it out there for the masses, And so I quit my job, and I was going to start doing wedding dresses and bridesmaids dresses and that kind of thing. And a friend of mine said, hey, in between weddings, you should look at doing window treatments or, curtains and draperies. And I was like, I've never done that before, but surely a wedding dress and window treatments, it's got to use some of the same techniques and so forth. So, okay, maybe. And it didn't take me long till I found out I really liked it when I would go and measure a window and I would come back and the window measured the same. So
Oh, that is
I
so
thought,
truthful. Oh my
I kind of
goodness.
like this. And then there was so much less drama, I think, and I didn't have as much drama with brides as I did with bridesmaids. The bridesmaids were the ones that I had all the drama with. It would be like the night of the rehearsal that I would get a call. Can you come let this dress out? It's not fitting, and we got to have it right for the next day and all this. So windows, I didn't, just less drama. That's the best way to state it.
I love that.
So, yeah.
I did do some bridal work for a little while. I've never been an alterations person, and I did make a couple of wedding gowns, but I was doing headpieces, and I thought that had less drama attached to it than anything about the body. And again, the heads did not change size at all.
That's right.
But
that's good.
The drama, and you're saying the bridesmaids, not the bride. I had a lot of drama with mothers, not brides. And
that would make
yes.
sense. Yes.
When I started making window treatments, it was like, this is a much calmer lifestyle.
Yeah. And I found that, well, pricing is always an issue, right? But I found with window treatments, it was easier to figure your pricing than with garments, because everything was so different. And at that time I was taught, even in school, I think I was taught double your supplies. Well, I was making these dresses, velvet, satin for $125 because, that I was just doubling my supplies. Well, there's, there was no way to make a business out of that, So anyways, it was easier to learn the pricing for window treatments too, I think.
Okay. And how did you start your business? Was it retail, to the trade, combination? Where did you start getting clients?
Gotcha. Well, I started retail. I love the design end of it. I love the, selecting fabrics and, putting it all together. So I love that part of it. In fact, now I would say I'm probably about a 50-50, 50 retail, 50 designer. And again, a lot of my business I've just kind of happened into, which probably the grace of God. But when I had my daughter, it was God just started putting designers in front of me. It's kind of a long story how all that happened, and I started to go, wait, this would be easier because I have this little human that I'm taking care of. I can not spend so much time in the client's home, but spend more time in the workroom. So it worked. That's when I started introducing designers into my business. And, that worked really well too. So, so today I do both. And I like both of them just as well. So,
do you struggle at all to shift from one to the other? Because it is a different, different business model, but it's a different experience and different processes.
Yes.
For you. Yeah.
I'm probably, no, I love it. Like sometimes I need a change, like sometimes I need the, not monotony, that's not the right word, but the process of just doing the same thing, it kind of clears my mind. But after a while, I start to get bored. And so, I can kind of then go and look at fabrics and start pulling fabrics together because I know a client's coming up that I'm meeting with. So I like that part of it. I think it's harder to get paid for your time with the retail design side of it versus the fabricating side. But yeah, I like it so much. I'm not willing to give it up. Isn't that bad?
No. So. Actually, I think it's amazing when workrooms do both. Because I think that, and I'm very much like you, production sewing can be great. Not that whether you're working for a designer or a retail client, we don't do the same thing over and over again. But if we're just going to be working in our workroom for weeks at a time because of work coming in from a designer, that is different than putting together a presentation, like you said, looking through fabrics, which is not my strong point. So for me to shift back and forth like that, but I love when people can make it work and can yes, I get bored if I do the same thing over and over again, but I just make something different in my workroom. I don't necessarily enjoy that kind of change, but like you, I like the feedback of the client. I like going, with the designer to the client's home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, there's some days I just want to be in my workroom. I don't want to see anybody. I want to, I always have to get dressed because if I'm in my PJs, I don't feel like I'm productive. But
Right.
There's some days I'm like, I just need to see people. I need to get with people.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's but if I was that every day, I wouldn't like that either. So I like having both worlds, it works really well.
So I'm curious, you said getting dressed because if you're in your PJs, you don't feel like, do you dress the same way every day? Like, do you have a workroom outfit? Do you have, I'm curious and I'll explain in a minute.
Okay. Not really. Some days I'm more casual than other days, but, most of the time it's jeans, maybe it's, hiking pants, tech pants, that kind of thing. But, if I have a client meeting or somebody I'm meeting in the middle there, it's a little more dressed up. I can do that too. Right. But, I can't do the just jump in my yoga pants and do it because I don't know. I don't feel productive.
Right. I was curious about that because I had a conversation recently with someone about, when your lifestyle changes a little bit and the idea of getting up, getting dressed and go to work is different than it used to be. And I have always found that on those very rare days when I either didn't get out of my exercise clothes or I was still in my pajamas, inevitably I'd get a phone call from a designer.
Exactly.
I know we don't have an appointment, but can I stop by? Like, not for half an hour you can because nobody's seen this.
That's right. That's right.
And I also just feel like it sets my tone for the day and I'm ready to go. And there are days that I want to be more comfortable based on what I'm doing in the workroom.
Right.
But I wouldn't be embarrassed if somebody stopped by.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've had people who are like, I get up every day and I put on, this kind and I am ready.
Oh, wow.
Because that works for them. So I'm always curious. And I just had that conversation recently. So
yeah, I wish I was that regimented, but I'm really not. I really am, we're more, even as a family, we're more spontaneous and all of that. And so as much as I would like to think, I think, oh, that would be nice just to have it, cookie cutter, don't have to think about anything. The whole thing about, was it Steve Jobs that he put on a black turtleneck every day so he didn't have to think about what he was wearing. And there's some days I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to wear and I'm like, that would be easy, but I think I would die on the vine because I just don't fit into that,
And now as it's still 40 degrees in April here in southeastern Pennsylvania, I'm so tired of wearing my winter clothes that I did think about that. If I put the same thing on every day, I would not feel as creative. I would not feel the same type of energy. But I also think, there have been times where I finish breakfast and I sit down at my desk and, 45 minutes later I go, oh, I really need to go put some clothes on and take a shower and put clothes on.
Yes.
But then I think, that's one of the joys of working for myself and working in my own home.
It is.
It's okay that I started working without the routine.
Right.
I just do feel like I'm a little more productive on those days.
I will often do that. Like, especially I'll get up and when my house is quiet, if there's something, hanging over my head, I go ahead and jump into work and get it, and just sometimes that's easier.
Agreed.
And I get, my mind is, I don't know, it's just my mind's fresher or whatever. I maybe can figure something out that first thing in the morning. And so if I do that, I'm usually just hopping down there and whatever I got on. And then it's like, wait, I got to do this. And then, I'm trying, we'll probably get into this later in the interview, but, often when our schedule gets so crazy, the first thing to go is our self-care, and that's, and as much as you say you want to put on your own oxygen mask first, I also don't want my family to suffer, so I'm looking for ways that I can cut or have extra time for whatever my business I need to do without it affecting my family. And so that's the things you do for yourself, right? Like work out or, whatever it may be, meditation time, prayer time, whatever, know. And so my husband, he will just take off and take a run in the middle of the day. And I'm so jealous because he can go exercise and jump in the shower and be ready in 10 minutes after he gets done. I can't do that. I wish I could.
I wish I could too. does not work that way for me.
Yeah, yeah. And when you have kids, and like I have golden hours from the time she goes to school to the time I pick her up, those are my golden hours. But recently I've been like jumping into work and then like midday stopping and getting a workout in and getting ready at that point in the day, kind of halfway through the day.
Right.
It's kind of been kind of fun. So it's been a little, I don't know, a little different. And now I can only do that on days that I don't have other appointments and things like that. But I'm trying to let myself have a little bit more flexibility in that, because maybe I can be more productive if I, get up first thing, get that, where my mind's cleared, get something done on work and work out later. So anyway, it's all part of trying to figure that out, right?
Right. But I agree with you. Sometimes that, like that nagging feeling, I'll wake up before the alarm goes off, and instead of my regular morning routine, I will get either right in front of the computer or right down to the work table and go, okay, what is the solution to this? Or I've come up with it at 3:00 in the morning.
Yes.
And then I can at least start it, or maybe even finish whatever that piece of it is. And then I have peace of mind the rest of the day. I can go on with my day. But it's funny because recently I've been sort of looking at that. Is it really best for me to do literally the same thing every day in the same order to get started, not the entire day?
Right.
Or do I need to do that once in a while? Like not exercise right away, because I exercise most mornings. But like maybe wait until 11:30 or whatever, especially because it was so cold this winter. There were a couple of times I'm like, I am not going out there for a walk.
No, I agree.
It's not a good idea. But once I got started, I didn't allow for time to say, oh, you know what? It's not too bad out there now. I can go. It's like, this isn't my routine. I'm not doing it. And I felt like that did not quite work for me the way I would have liked it to.
Right. Me too. Sometimes I feel like, wait, I can't do that because I won't be productive. But actually, if I let myself do that, I'm actually more productive. And so finding that sweet spot, that balance and all of that, again, I've been doing this forever, but it's still this learning curve. And I guess it always changes. It's never, it never stays the same. It's always changing.
Our life circumstances change. Our health changes, things that we used to be able to do with our bodies, we can't, and we have to adjust that. So you're right. We are always learning.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So you started with the bridal stuff. Somebody made the suggestion about the window treatments. I'm familiar with starting a business at that point in time. We were working before the internet was readily available to us.
Right.
So how did you get education and learn to do the things?
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Back then you found books, I the first thing I did was get a book that was called Working from Home. And this book was,
oh my gosh, thick. I had the same book.
Did you? Was it not like, that's how I got my sales tax ID number. It's how I just figured out how to do it for taxes, was setting up a home office. And I learned so much about business from that book and, handling distractions and, just all of that stuff. It was a great book.
It was very comprehensive. It wasn't just about taking a craft or some idea.
It was any business.
It covered everything. It was I remember standing in the library getting that book out.
I know, right?
The baby on my hip.
That's right. That's right. So that was imperative for me. Also, my local college, community college, had a small business association that they offered classes. So I would take classes from there. And in fact, I met with a lady, and just kind of showed her my business. It wasn't really a business plan, but, here's my business card. Here's what I'm doing, da, 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 da. And she told me early on, she was like, you probably need to pick. You need to pick if you're going to do wedding dresses or if you're going to do window treatments. And I was like, well, that's kind of crazy. Why can I not do both? But she was so right. And it took me a while to get there. But after a while, I realized, wait, there is you can't do both. You can't do both and promote yourself, promote your business, and really be good at one or the other. You really, So I know one of the questions you ask is, when did you feel like it became a business? It was probably once I started saying, okay, I've got to choose, and I like the windows better, so I'm going to do windows.
So that's really funny, Jenny, because I went to SCORE, which is Service Corps for Retired Executives, right at the beginning.
Okay.
It had to be 1993 because I was in this house.
Okay.
And we had moved right after my younger daughter was born. And I was looking at both. I was doing the headpieces. I had met two interior designers at a SCORE meeting. And he said to me, well, why can't you? I felt like I had to make a choice. And he said, why can't you do both? And I was like, because it's confusing. And it's like, how do I promote myself? Like all of those things.
Yeah.
And I actually met with another SCORE advisor after that. And I had already made the decision I was doing one, not the other. It was just which one was going to be more profitable, which one could I do?
Yeah.
And like
as a business.
I liked the windows better. It was just easier all around. But it's so funny because I did get different advice in the beginning. Like, sure, do both. That's a great idea. I don't think it was for me. Maybe somebody else could do it, but I couldn't.
Maybe. Yeah. I just think I guess you could, I did alterations for a while, mainly because we hung out with teenagers a lot early on. We worked with teens. And so we had a lot of those girls, prom age and all that. And I would do their alterations and things. So I did that for a while, but it was a good day when I finally learned to say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah, it was a good day.
It was a good day for me too. So similar to me, you were learning from books and things like that.
Yes.
At what point did you start to buy industrial machines or professional equipment?
Gotcha. Well, let me go back to that again. So I talked about those two things, and to learn how to make anything, that was either patterns or books. I found Vogue patterns were better than any other pattern on the market, but still not a high end. Not a high end thing. It still looked homemade to me.
Yes.
But and pretty soon, I don't remember how many years into it, but I did the conference. This was when the school was in Charlotte.
Okay.
What was it called then?
CHF Academy.
Yes. And the conference it wasn't CHF. I forget what the conference was. Anyways. But when I went to that first conference, it was, of course, the mind blowing, like number one, there's people out here doing what I do. Right. There's, that are, not in their 80s, because there were people in my town who did it, but they were all older and they just hung out in their basements all day. Right. And that's all they did, so it was so fascinating to find that. And then of course the classes and then the webinars and, so that's really how I learned was all of that. I was fortunate enough. I started out with an industrial serger, from one of the companies I worked for. They had gotten these sergers and I was like drooling, and one of the mechanic and somebody in the company was like, "You want one?" I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Yes. And I think I left maybe a couple of months after I got that serger. They probably were like, "Oh, bad idea." But anyways, I used a home machine for a long time. At some point I got a single needle machine, that was refurbished. I had a friend that worked on sewing machines and he refurbished one, and I think I got it for like $100 or something. And I still use it today. It's a Consew. It's an older one, but man, it's a workhorse. Let me think. But I was working out of a very small room in our house. Mm-hmm. And then I took over it was a 3-bedroom house. I took over the other bedroom. And then I was taking over the living room, and my husband would come home and he would say, "Where can I sit?" And so at that point we were like, okay, maybe it's time we need either something bigger or whatever. And we ended up building a house, and I had a bonus room, and I worked out of the bonus room for a while. And then I finally did the table, and I don't know how I did draperies without my table. I'm sure everybody says that. But so I had my table in the basement. It's an unfinished basement. I had the table in the basement, but the rest of everything was up in a bonus room, so 2 flights up. Now, how crazy is that, right?
But we work with what we have. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Especially when you come from a DIY background or you just make it work, right?
Yeah.
But at some point it dawned on me, oh, wait, I should just put all this in one area. And so I have a love-hate relationship with my workroom because I love it. I have a lot of space. It's in my basement, but it's unfinished. And so I don't take the time to finish it because you're just working for other people, or I would rather make draperies for my upstairs, my main area versus work on my workroom on the weekends or in the evenings. So anyways, it's a blessing to have an unfinished workroom because you can just throw things up on the wall, you can screw things in, all of that. But then there's another side. I cannot get a good picture. All of that's a challenge, or I have to bring it upstairs and try to do something. And anyways, but we make it work.
I can relate to that.
Yes. Somebody on Instagram. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody that I look up to as they are, do great work, all that. They posted, they were doing an arch set of draperies, and they had pictures from their workroom, and it was an unfinished basement. And I was like, oh, I'm not alone.
Not by myself.
That's right.
It's funny because my basement was totally unfinished for a very long time. And there were things about it that I loved. Like you said, I could just screw things into the ceiling. There were no, but the lighting wasn't great and all these other things. And my husband really helped me put it together this one year between Christmas and New Year's. He was always off, and we made that our project.
Nice.
We painted the walls, ripped up the crappy tiles and painted the floor.
Yeah.
And he insisted I needed a drop ceiling. And I was like, but I use all that space up there.
Yeah.
But we put in the drop ceiling and lights, and it just
changed your life.
It was life-changing, and it was worth it. But it did take me years to get to that so that I could feel like it wasn't. My daughters used to call it the dungeon. So it stopped being the dungeon. But like you said, you can walk away from it. And that's
right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I did brighten up all my lights, so I did fix that part. But and eventually I'll get it. But we call it the cellar dweller. I'm the cellar dweller sometimes.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Anyways, but that's a great idea.
In all of that, Jenny, did you ever think about quitting and doing something else?
Yes. Whenever I make mistakes, whenever I've made a mistake, my words to my husband is always, I need to fire myself, but I really don't know what else I would be doing. So I think it's you that says a lot. I would make a terrible employee.
Oh, I would. Yeah.
I would definitely make a terrible employee. So
I'd have way too much to say, and I would walk away. Like when I get frustrated, I walk away and I go do something else. It's something productive, but not necessarily what I should be working on. And I don't know too many bosses who would tolerate that.
That's right. I'd always be like, now what's the best way to do this, or try, anyways.
So I always love to talk about the challenges of our industry. And for you, what were some of the biggest challenges?
By far, my biggest challenge is just the work-life balance. Again, I love working out of my home, but I love what that affords me to do. It affords me to be a mom. It affords me to, do things I couldn't do if I was going to a place. But I never get away. You never, I can, even if we go away on vacation or something, I seem to sleep much better than I do when I'm at home. And I think it's because that's always there. It's like always just a staircase away, a flight of steps away. So you never really truly get away from it. So that's my biggest challenge and continues to be. So
I think I've spoken with so many people who felt like the day they moved their business out of their home was the best day ever.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I would make the transition at this point after all these years, but there is
Right.
something about, well, I have to go home. So I'm going to
Exactly.
lock this door and leave, as
Yeah.
opposed to I'm going to stop doing this and after dinner I'm coming back to it because
Yeah.
I need to get this done. I don't know
Yeah.
how I personally would have handled that. But you're
Right.
right. There are benefits to working from home that I was so grateful for that I guess I
Um,
sort of overlooked some of the
yeah.
middle of the night, like, did I turn my iron off?
That's right.
Or
That's right.
or wait a minute, I just figured out why that hem isn't turning properly and running
That's right.
downstairs. You're right.
That's
It's
right.
definitely a pro
Yeah.
con thing that I don't think most of us have found the answer to.
Yeah. Another challenge in my area is there's just not people doing this anymore, so
Okay.
um, it's part of why I'm needing to, I've really had to think about the scaling of my business and what I'm going to do so that I
Okay.
can have work-life balance and not just work all the time, but and not just make my clients wait forever, so
Right.
I'm trying to figure out that way to yes, have projects on the book, have work on the books, but yet really care for my customers best, and how to do that.
Okay.
So just trying to be creative with some solutions and, what is it that I do want? Like I look at what Elizabeth has done, A Stitch Above the
Mhm.
uh,
Stitch above the rest. It's Elizabeth
yes,
Burns.
yes. Just a beautiful job,
Mhm.
and how fun and all of that. And I used to think I wanted to kind of go that way. I don't think that's for me. So,
Okay.
I really want my hands on the window treatments. I want to be part of making them. And
Mhm.
so, anyways, we're working on just coming up with some different ways to
Yeah.
better care for my clients. And then just, I'm so thankful for what Workroom Tech is doing because this is an industry. We need people. We
Yes.
need more people doing what we do. I think that would be better for everybody's business.
Right.
So,
I live in an area where there have been a number of workrooms,
okay.
yet some of us are getting to the point where we're ready to retire. Some have already
Right.
retired.
Yeah.
And I think about the area of the country that you live in. It was always so connected to furniture and furniture
Mhm.
making and all of
Yep.
that, that to hear that there isn't a lot in your area
Yeah.
is pretty upsetting. And you're
I
right.
know, right?
Those of us who are aging out of it need to be looking at the younger generation and who can we encourage and how can we help them.
Yeah.
But I'm always surprised when I hear somebody in your area saying there's nobody around me doing it, because it used to
Yeah.
be there were so many more doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and everybody got out of it. Well, when I guess it was when all the places started shutting down,
Hmm.
you would have thought a lot of the sewers would have, and there were several upholsterers in our area,
Okay.
which makes sense because it was furniture.
Right.
But even a lot of them are not doing it anymore. They took advantage of furthering education and they just went and did something else, which you can't blame them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so and I know now they're trying to bring more back and they're doing some good things. There's a furniture academy here now.
Okay.
And so they're doing things to bring it back because we do have some furniture manufacturers that are making furniture here.
Okay.
So yeah, there are things happening.
Okay.
Um, one of the ways I've decided I want to grow and take care of my clients better is I want to connect with other workrooms
Hmm.
and I want to be able to, at the same time I'm producing things, have people who maybe don't want that one-on-one with the client. They don't want to go out and measure. They don't want
Right.
to, they don't want to deal with the client's questions and all of that, but they just want to make beautiful things in their workrooms. And
Hmm.
so, through the library, I've connected with one other workroom,
Oh,
and
that's
she's doing
awesome.
some, yeah. So we're working together, and
Okay.
hopefully, it's going to be a win-win for both of us.
Right.
and she gets to do what she loves to do, and I get to do what I love to do, and I can still take care of more customers and serve them better, because right now most of my clients are waiting on me like 6 months or more.
I was just about to ask you if you'd be comfortable sharing that. And it's interesting because I can remember Elizabeth speaking with her about the lead time, and she used to say 18 weeks.
Yeah.
And people may not have liked it, but there wasn't an option.
Right. And, I wouldn't want to wait that long if I was ordering something, so I totally understand. Most people, I work with the best clients ever. Most people, if they want custom and they want that attention to detail, they are willing to wait for that quality because they, especially if they're using materials that are $200 a yard or even $60, $70 a yard. I mean, you can't just, I think most people realize I don't really want to turn that over to just anybody. So they want somebody they can trust with that. So, but I feel like I want to serve them better. I want to serve, I want to get them faster. And so that's what I'm hoping to do in the near future.
The sponsors of the So Much More podcast allow me to bring guests to you each week. And without them, I couldn't do it. I'm pleased as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library that I can use the library to help sponsor the podcast as well. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. Education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to members of the Window Covering Association of America. The WCAA is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. The library is a gold level sponsor of the WCAA. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. Discover Klimaka Studios, where innovation meets exceptional design. Klimaka fabric and wallpaper collections are inspired by the original works of collaborating artists and developed with the understanding of how fabrics are manipulated into exquisite soft home furnishings. Workroom businesses enjoy exclusive access to engineered designs and best trade pricing. From clever layouts to classic linen prints, Klimaka Studios delivers the quality and consistency that your business demands. And Klimaka's reliable on-time delivery keeps your projects running smoothly. Go to klimakastudios.com for swatches and trade account information. Klimaka Studios, for the joy and profit of workrooms. I love that you look at somebody else's business, admire them for it, think it's great, and say, oh, that's not quite right for me. And it's something that I had to actually deal with when I started the podcast, because I was interviewing so many interesting people with so many different business models. And I admit in the beginning, there were times where I'm like, I wonder why I didn't think of that. Like, not that I couldn't still do some of the things, but I realized that sometimes it's because that wasn't for me. Yeah. And I love that we can adapt our businesses to whatever we want them to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I think
And
that's an important reminder.
yeah. And also it's kind of like, I get this feeling often when I'm looking at the Window Vision magazine or even like House Beautiful or one of those where there's all these ideas coming at me. And I finally just have to close it and set it to the side because it's too many ideas. And you
Yes.
probably deal with that because you talk to so many people and
Right.
they're always good ideas. And you're trying
Yes.
to process that and, you know, how can I make that work for me? So
Right.
sometimes I just have to like, okay, enough input for now. I've got to be
Yes.
with myself.
I can absolutely relate to
So,
that.
yeah,
Any kind of a magazine. I
yeah,
love going into the bookstore and looking at I say craft magazines, but there's sewing, there's knitting, there's art, there's, all kinds
yeah,
of creative things. And then at a certain point I go,
yeah.
okay, that's it. I
I
can't
know.
let another thought in. I can't have
I
another
know.
idea. Yeah.
And isn't it funny that those of us who make things with our hands, often our hobbies are creative or things with our hands. And
Yes.
I'm always like, wait, I need to be doing something that's not creative or something that's not with
Yes.
my hands,
Yes.
And what is that?
I don't know because
I
I
know.
will say I do love to knit, and sometimes it is the repetition. I can be listening to something or watching something, but
Yeah.
sometimes knitting patterns are really tricky, and if I'm not paying
Yeah.
attention, but doing
Yeah.
something with my hands is kind of a constant thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we continue to use that same side of our brain,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. So
but
I'm curious, Jenny, with making some of the decisions that you have for your business and even thinking about the future, what is your definition of success?
mm, um, well, I would say probably two different definitions. One, my definition for success with business would be separate or different from my definition of success with life.
Okay.
And with business, I would say success is getting paid well for a job well done. That's, you know, as much as money is not important to me or money is not like a driving force for me, I've had to make it a driving force in my business for it to be a business and not a hobby. And
Okay.
so that's how I would say it. I would say getting paid well for a job well done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about in your personal life?
I would say, my faith is a big part of my personal life. So I would say, knowing and loving God and loving others, just in those two things, I would think that kind of wraps up my personal life, what I would see
Okay.
as successful. So,
All right. I love that.
but
So I'm curious. We mentioned mistakes. That's when you
yeah,
want to quit. What do
yes.
you do and how do you handle a mistake or a failure?
Well, probably what everybody else does. You just handle it. You just, you get to the end of it. Um, I've had to I use the analogy often with clients that I have to be like the Grinch if I'm at an install and I've done something wrong. I've got to take it back to my workshop. I'll fix it there and bring it back here, So I've had to do that several times, more times than I probably would like. But one of the things I tell my clients is, when you work with me, you get me. I can't guarantee there won't be problems, there won't be hiccups, there won't be things that don't go perfectly, but I'll be there with you, and I'm not going to leave you. I'll hang in with you till we, get you something beautiful.
Okay.
So you just kind of hang in there and do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's what makes us business owners. I don't know, but you just do it.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about perfectionism versus pride in our work. And I think there is a line where it becomes paralyzing. But at the
Oh
same
yeah.
time, we want to be proud, like you said, to be paid well for a job well done. And well
Yeah.
done means to me that they are happy. And
Yep.
and I kind of have to be happy with how it looks too. I mean, I've had
Exactly.
some jobs where I'm like, yeah, I hope I never see that again because I'm not really proud of it. But the
Right.
homeowner was thrilled.
Right. Who was it that said, I can't see it from my house?
I feel
Somebody
like it
would
was
say
Ann
that.
Johnson.
Maybe so.
And I
Maybe
know
so.
she said it once in a class that I was in. If the client's happy and the designer is happy, then it's done right.
Yeah.
And I hear it. I'm trying to take it in, but part of me is like, but if that left corner was just a little different.
No, I'm the same way. And like, so I try to take that home with me. What Ann Johnson said, like, I can't see it from, if it's not bothering them, they don't know. If I mention it, it'll bother them. So try not to mention it and, be okay. But it is right. I mean, you want, I want what I put out there, I want to be proud of, and, like I think back on one of your questions you usually ask is, what was the first thing you made professionally? And I think I mentally have a block because probably those early projects I just don't even want to think about.
I don't want to remember that. Well, that's funny because you mentioned the patterns. And in my first home, I made a swag. I don't know if it technically qualifies for a swag. I believe it was a rectangle with diagonal channels that I put cording through and pulled it up. I believe that is, and it was a calico fabric that hung in my triple window in the front of my house. And I'm pretty sure at the time it cost me a fortune in my mind because I was making it myself, but I had to buy yards and yards of fabric. And at one point, we had sold the house and it had gone back up for sale. My husband was going to look at it on Zillow or whatever. I said, please tell me that window treatment isn't in the window because I can't look at the pictures of it. I can't see that again. And I was so proud of it at the time.
I hear you.
So given that you and I started out learning from books, are there any books that you've read that have been instrumental in your business or your life? It doesn't have to be business, but any books that you would recommend?
Yeah. First, I would say Redeeming Your Time by Jordan Raynor. And I heard about that book from Donna Cash. She mentioned it in one of her webinars or whatever. And it was such a great time management. But again, if I mentioned my faith before, but like it was time management plus biblical principles kind of wrapped into one. So it was part of what I needed, and I'm still not perfect at it, still working on it, but it's a great book. The other thing I would mention is StrengthsFinders. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Gallup StrengthsFinders. You got it?
It happens to be on my desk. And
I'm
just looking, I printed this a very long time ago and I found it in a pile of paper and I have to look through this again. It literally just sitting here on my desk.
If there has been one thing in my life that has changed my life, it is that personality. It's not really personality, it's more strengths.
Yes.
So it's, one of mine was maximizer. That was my top one, which a maximizer means you don't want to take something that's bad and make it just a little bit better. You want to take something that's good and make it great. A maximizer also is, if you have a friend that's running late all the time, they're probably a maximizer because if they have 5 minutes, they're going to try to get 10 minutes worth of stuff in that 5 minutes. That is me. All the way. That is me. But just knowing that about myself, it allows me then to just work smarter and work in your strengths. The second one is a ranger, which I think would probably be people who do what we do. That a lot of people might have that, but you're constantly putting things in step 1, step 2, step 3. Which works in our business and our world. My husband one of his is visionary. And so he's always talking about all these dreams and everything. And it wears me out because I'm going, this has to happen first. What has to happen second? Okay. And I'm trying to figure that out. And he's already moved on to another dream or another vision or whatever. And I'm like, wait, come back here. So it's not only has it helped me in my business, but it's also helped me in my relationships and like knowing how, that's why he's thinking that way. And
and he is going to move on while I'm trying to solve the first problem that he's now not thinking about anymore.
That's right. And not ever going to think about it again, maybe,
I can start planning it.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that if you haven't done it. We're getting ready to do it with our daughter who's 16.
Okay.
They do a student. Yeah, they do a student version as well. And it will also give you, as a student, it will give you like study habits. Like my husband has Woo, which is like he's going to be in a room and he's going to make sure that he gets to talk to every person in that room. And he just wants to know everybody in the room.
Right.
And so it's like, if you have that in your strengths, you probably don't want to do a group study session, because you're going to be more focused on the people than actual studying, Okay. So I think it's going to be really good. We're doing it with my daughter and a couple of her friends.
Okay. I'll put a link to it because it's so funny because it literally is sitting there, but
that is
I realize it's been so long since I've looked at it. I don't remember what my strengths are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and you'll go back. I'm actually going to take it again because I took it many, many years ago, but I wonder if some of them might change, or, like if you're the ones that were like 4 or 5, maybe there was something that was 6 or 7 that might actually bump up. I think that might be the case. So
I think that's a great idea.
When my daughter's taking it, my husband and I are both going to take it again to see if it has changed at all in the past. I mean, I don't know. That was probably 20 years ago. We did that maybe, but
I want to say it has to be. It might be 10 years since I've taken it. And I did, like I said, I printed it all out. So, all right, we're going to have to check back with each other. I think we're both going to do this. And I'll put a link to the website in the show notes so people can take a look at it. That's great.
Yeah. I was trying to think if there's any other books. I think those two would be the main. And then, of course, classes, the lots of classes at the Custom Workroom Conference, but the one that has forever changed me is Penny Bruce's Pleating to Pattern.
Oh my
because
goodness.
Now I cannot not pleat to pattern. I cannot do it.
It's so interesting because I've seen a couple people post examples of why you should, because you get partway across a double width panel and the whole thing shifts and the fabric looks completely different.
Yes.
And I've seen people come up with some really creative ways to make sure that every part of the pattern shows.
Yeah.
So, because when you pleat to pattern, depending on the fabric, you can miss a whole part of it.
But
I do remember feeling like my brain was going to explode in her class because I was like, oh, this just makes so much sense to me.
Yes. In fact, I don't have very many window treatments done in my house, but one that I do is in my guest bedroom, and I did not pleat to pattern. And every time I walk in that room, I cringe. So I'm like, I got to change it.
We shouldn't have to cringe in our own homes.
I know, right? But I find myself not. I guess when I pleat to pattern, it's mainly like often I'm doing 2 pleats to every pattern repeat. So maybe not every pleat is the same, but every other pleat is the same. And that gives it a little more of a, not so rigid, not so tailored.
It feels a little
softer.
Organic, right. But not disorganized, which is what I think pleating to pattern really brought to some of the geometric patterns that were out there. As I said, I've seen it.
And the motifs.
Halfway through, it's like a whole different panel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But so that one has, and then of course, Michelle Williams, Understanding Your Finances, that changed my world. Just, knowing how to back into that number of what you need to make per month and, how the markups and all of that was just, Michelle has helped so many of us.
Yes. Okay. So do you use much technology in your business, Jenny?
Not as much as I would probably want to, just because I don't want to take the time to learn it, but I would say what did I write down as my favorite technology? Just my iPhone. How did we do life before iPhones and just being able to, you just pull things up on the fly and all that. And then QuickBooks, again, another one of those things. It was forever before I finally pulled the plug and did it, and it was a long learning curve for me. But once I learned that, just being able to do estimates better, being able to invoice better, being able to keep track of things better.
Right.
Those would be my favorite technologies.
Okay.
But yeah. I'm probably more of a sucker for gadgets, like anything that makes fabricating easier or quicker. Those are like, I can't get enough. I'm like, oh,
Okay,
what is it?
what are
Let me
some of
try
your
it.
favorite? What are some of your favorite gadgets? Because I do love gadgets.
Well, yeah, the pin setter, number one for drapery pinning. I'm trying to think what else. Off the top of my head, the the pleat tape that you stretch out.
Oh,
Pleat. Yeah.
Yes. I'll put a link to that. I know
Yeah.
Janelle sells it on the Workroom Marketplace.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great one. I don't know,
And
just laser levels.
I think Ann Johnson sells it on her website too. I'll put links to that.
Okay.
Laser levels and laser measures are amazing.
Yes. The fan folding, the thing that has I can't ever think of the names of them, but it has you slide the little clips down and it'll hold the pleat while you pull it tight. That I love that. That's all I can think of at the top of my. When I get down in my workroom, when I get back in my workroom, I'll be like, oh, I should have mentioned this and this and this.
You can send me an email and tell me what.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm curious, Jenny, do you do any sewing for pleasure?
Some. Okay. Not. Time is prohibitive there. If I'm out of my workroom, I'd really most of the time don't want to go back into it. But I've always made my daughter's Halloween costumes. That's always just been a fun way for me to keep my hand in apparel, but not really have to do anything serious. That I've also helped with theater costumes, and that's a different world because, when I do draperies, everything is meticulous. Everything is, when you're doing theater, it's like fly by the seat of your pants. Right. You can tape it together. You can safety pin it together. You can
talk about can't see it from my house. If you can't see it from the audience, it's good.
Yes. I worked on, I was helping with, and again, where our kids are, that's usually where we end up, right? So my daughter is in theater, loves theater. So she was in a Lion King production, and the grass scene and the theater actually had a costumer, and I was working with her, and I had my tag gun there. Another great invention, right?
Yes.
And so I'm tagging all this stuff together, and she's like drooling. She was like, I have got to have one of these. And I'm like, yes, you could use this for everything. I use it for places I can hide, but
right before they go out on stage.
Everywhere. That's right. It's better than safety pins.
I love it. I love it.
So anyways, those are a couple fun things that I still have my hand in every now and then. But yeah.
Okay. Does your daughter have any interest in sewing?
She can't. It's funny. She didn't learn to sew as much from me as a good friend of mine. I was pretty much like, okay, you got to learn the basics and then do the fun stuff. And my friend could take her and she would cut everything out and just say, okay, let's start sewing. And she was so good. So my daughter actually learned from a friend of mine, and she's done some things, but she's not interested.
Okay. Yeah. No. Same at this house.
Yeah. She always wanted to start out with big projects. Like I think the first thing she wanted to make was a backpack. And I was like, maybe, but anyways, she has done different things, but I don't think it's in her excitement. It's in her excitement level. So.
Okay. What's your favorite thing to make in your workroom?
I love to do cornices. I love panels, drapery panels. I love Roman shades, and as much as again another love-hate relationship, but I love matching patterns. That's like so fun to me. Like I just installed one where the draperies and the Roman shades were out of the same fabric, and it was a very prominent pattern. And so to have those, Roman shades start at the same spot as the draperies, where they came over on the Roman shades, to have that pattern right at the same spot and all that. It drives me insane, but I love it when it all comes together. I'm
done.
That's right. When I'm done. So
I love that.
I do have a funny story. I forgot to tell you this when you were talking about what did you purchase for your workroom and all of that. My husband is also my installer.
Okay.
And I tell everybody it's because I can't imagine being up on a ladder that close with anybody other than him. So,
you have a point.
That's right. But so he early on we were doing one of these arched windows, and it's not one of those where the sides were straight and then you had the arch at the top. It was one of those, I forget what you call it, but it starts at the floor and it's a continual arch, right?
Gotcha.
And we were working with a designer at this point, and she wanted just short rods on each side of this window. And I think they were probably 15 feet up. And so we get there and I'm trying to tell Wayne, how I want this and where I want this and all that. And he's looking at me like, you're crazy. There is nothing straight. There's nothing level to measure off of.
Yeah.
I don't even think we had a laser level at that point. But anyways, and we're trying, and we find out, wait, we're not going to be able to make this work. So I had to go to the homeowner and I had to say, I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to come back tomorrow. And we went out that night and we bought a ladder, and I still use that ladder today in our business. It was one of the little giants, kind of like that. Yeah. And anyways, Wayne and I, we joke, we tell people it was a ladder that saved our marriage, and it's one of my favorite things that I use in my business.
Okay.
So,
because it's a great ladder and it saved your marriage.
That's right.
I love that. Jenny, what do you do extremely well?
Details, probably details, a lot of, I can nerd out on all the details. Sometimes the details are what keep me from getting started on a project, because you're just trying to think through, again, that arranger side of my strength, what's best, the maximizer, what's the best, not just what's good enough, but what's the best, and aligning all those details up.
Okay.
And I think we can have as many or as little as we want in this business, can't we?
Right, we can. What do you not do so well?
Details. Probably, definitely the timing. Just, knowing and scheduling. I always schedule too little time to get things done. Whatever I think it's going to take me, it always takes me longer. That's okay. I'm not good at that.
Seems to be a hard lesson for some of us to learn, because I'm right there with you.
And you always think, okay, give more time. But what's that law that says it's going to take you whatever the time you have allotted?
Yeah, it's, I want to say it's the Pareto principle. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
You have all day to write a letter. That's how long it takes. If
it's going to take you all day.
That's how long it takes.
Yes. And I find that is true more often than not. And I'm always like, why does this happen? But
it's a surprise every single time.
I know, right? So
what do you love best about this business?
I love being able to take something that's an idea, a thought, a vision, and make it into reality. I love that whole process. And, there's nothing like being an install day and it, seeing it all come together.
Yeah.
I love that part. I also love the clients. I've gotten to meet so many neat people, and, people that I would call friends, even just from, working with them, and you get to do so many different things that way. If I was only sewing for me, I would be bored because, I'm only going to be one style. I love that we get to do all kinds of different styles and types and that kind of thing. So,
okay. I love that. What do you like least about this business?
Just the part of never getting away from it. I don't know if that's the nature of our business or if it's the nature of business ownership, but
I don't know either, but the
nature of working out of your home, but maybe it's all, it's all of those. Yeah.
Okay.
But trying to learn ways to play more and create times to get away, and make it happen, because it doesn't naturally happen.
It doesn't. And especially the age that your daughter is.
Yeah.
The time when she's going off to college or starting the next part of her life is, as I'm sure sooner than you think. And to be able to enjoy the time you have with her now. I think that's
right.
Great.
That's right.
What about you would surprise people?
I was thinking about this, And I think, so I mentioned I'm really good at details, right? Most of the time. And we, as a family, we like outdoor adventure, hiking, those kind of things. So if I were to tell you something that would probably surprise most people is that I've ended up twice hiking up above the permafrost line without water.
Oh my goodness.
So how does somebody who always talks about, is always into details, lets that happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's happened to me, not just once, but twice. Okay. So
you need to make sure that does not happen again.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
The fact that you've been above the permafrost level by itself is...
Oh.
I love the outdoors. I love doing things outdoors, and my husband and my kids and I used to camp together a lot. Yeah. And then one year he took the girls camping without me.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Because I had a whole weekend to myself and they had time just for them. And just the other day we were talking about, we should all go camp, because my girls are now older. We should all go camping again. And I was like, I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for that. I'm sure I will have a great time if we do it.
That's right.
Yeah, but hiking is not in my wheelhouse.
Really? Oh, we love it. I love camping, but it's more glamping. I gotta have my space and all that. But
I'm thinking if we can arrange it to be glamping, I'm in.
There you go. There you go.
Jenny, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Another one of those things I struggle with, probably. I would think that you've probably heard it in my voice, just being able to have that balance. I know balance is, there's a book out there, it's called Balance is a Myth. So I know it's not perfectly possible to have that work-life balance, but to have that happy medium, like where work is not crazy and you get to enjoy and have joy and enjoy those things in life, but yet work is at a good place. Right. I'm trying to find those ways to add joy back in, because if work can get so crazy, it takes it all out of you. And then, I still haven't been a part of the Grace Awards. That's one of my goals. I want to do that, just, sometime and be a part of that. Just to enter it would be, and be a part of it that way would be exciting, I think. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. We'll see, right? You talked earlier about looking for ways to scale your business a bit, but in a way that's, as you've made a good point, that's balanced for you. Right. That isn't somebody else's business model, but yours. Right. Yeah. And we do kind of, like, as a family, we kind of operate off of some values. And so I think it's more those values guide my plans. And when, this business has always fit into those values. And if there's ever a point where it doesn't fit into the values, then we'll have to make a change, but it's kind of a great fit, within that. So terrific. Yeah. We'll keep going. Right. Yeah. Jenny, in what ways do you think you're resilient? I think you just do it, I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's a business owner thing, but just, if you just do what needs to be done, or, you pull up your bootstraps after you've made a mistake and you admit it and you learn from it and don't make it again. I don't know about you, but very few times have I ever made the same mistake twice. Usually they teach us, and that helps make you resilient because you've learned through by getting back up on that horse, getting back to it, you learn and you grow and you're better the next time. So and you say, I don't want to do that again. Yeah. I think it's that hope that I'll do better next time, or I've learned and I've grown and I won't do this again. I love that you use the word hope. I don't think I've had anybody say that, because originally I said, do you think you're resilient? And most of us were like, no, I just keep going. No. Oh, by the way, that is resilient. But I love the idea of hope. Okay, I made this mistake, this happened, and now I can learn from it and do better next time. I love that. I love that. Yeah. All right, so how can people find you?
I will put links in the show notes. Are you on?
Okay.
What social media platforms are you on?
So Instagram is probably the one I'm on the most.
Okay.
And then I have a website. So those two places are the best.
I will put links to them in the show
Okay.
notes. What advice would you give to someone who's new in this industry or someone who's been around for a while, Jenny?
I would say do the StrengthsFinders. You will find out so much about yourself and those around you, and you'll probably even be able to pick some things out within your clients or your designers that you work with.
Okay.
That then you will be like, oh wait, this makes sense. I used to be offended by people or situations or whatever, and I've learned to just be unoffendable because there's usually something, and it's just different than me.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily directed at me. It's just different than me.
Okay.
So I would suggest that. I would suggest, the biggest skill I probably had to learn is how to say no, and
yes,
the freedom that comes in saying no is a really big thing.
That's a great way to think of it. I know we all struggle with that. Yeah. In this business, whether we struggle with it long-term throughout our entire career or just in the beginning. But I really love the way you just put that. I think that's great.
Yeah. I'm trying in my town management that I'm not really good at. I'm trying to look at, I'm the kind that will make a list of 20 things that I need to do. Oh, here's 20 things I need to get done today. Yeah. Well, I can't get all 20 done. So I'm trying to look at it and say, okay, I need one and a second. You do a number one and a second. If I get that second one done, that'll be great, And then I'm also trying to say, okay, of this, what can I say no to? Say no to at least one thing instead of just rolling everything over to the next day.
Yes.
And then tomorrow I got to say no to something else. Yeah. That's been important for me because, those of us that stack up our schedules way too much. Yeah.
But I love the idea of it not just being I need to learn to say no. It's
right.
Saying no gives me freedom.
Yeah.
Whether it's more time with my family or more time to finish something in my business that I wasn't going to finish. I love that.
Love that. And for me, it's even been, it allows me to serve my present clients best by saying no. That's how I serve them and be the best for them for what they've hired me to do is sometimes that takes saying no, instead of trying to be everything to all people,
Right.
So.
And for those of us who are people pleasers, that's a tough thing to accomplish.
Exactly.
But the outcome of it is well worth it. So
yeah. You do it a few times and then it's like, wait, I can do this. The first time it feels awful and you lose sleep over it and all of that. But then it starts to be like, okay, the world is still going. Yes. The world is still spinning. Yes. It's okay. My life is still going. I'm okay. And they're going to be okay.
I can say no.
Yeah.
Jenny, this has been an absolute delight for me. Thank you so much for saying yes. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for asking. And I'm glad I did say yes, too. This has been fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
It really makes me so happy when I get to spend some time with my guests and get to know them a little bit better. And I really did not know Jenny well at all. And I'm so glad that she said yes, because I love hearing about her journey and I loved hearing how she made decisions for her and her business. And I love everything that she shared with us today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Jenny today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.